Thanks, Helen. Welcome, everybody. It's the Buller District Council Extraordinary Meeting, 18th of March 2006. Present online, we have Douglas Marshall and Teresa Whitting. Welcome. Thank you for attending. And thank you to all the staff for attending, and welcome, Alan, from the news. Okay, we have one apology, I think, and that's for Francois. We don't have one from Linda at all.
Sorry, okay. Linda said to me she won't be able to make the meeting. She's going to try and catch us and not able to make it.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Okay, so that's an apology from Councillor Webb as well. Okay, so I'll declare the meeting open. We've just done the apologies. Okay, so there being only the two apologies, no request for leave or absence. Would somebody like to move that we accept those? Councillor Reynolds, and seconded by Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Oh, sorry, yeah, getting back into it. Okay, all those in favour, those against? That's passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, in front of us here, let's go through members' interests. The members disclose any financial or non-financial interest of any of the agenda items. Does anybody have anything to close? Okay, no. Would somebody like to move? Councillor O'Keefe and Councillor Hawes. Thank you. All in favour? Those against? Thank you. That's passed. Okay, we're here today. We have a draft recommendation in front of us. So we'll just go over to that. The draft recommendation that I'll welcome Councillor Webb.
Apologies, I'm a bit late.
That's okay. Okay, so the draft recommendation in front of us is that Council endorses the set up budget of $5 million for the Water Services Council controlled organisation, and approves its 1/3 share of the debt funding for the set-up costs as per the heads of the agreement adopted when the Water Services Delivery Plan was approved in August 2025. That the WSCCO set-up costs will initially be debt funded by Buller District Council, with the debt transferring to the Water Services Council controlled organisation from date of operational activity, which is expected to be the 1st of July 2027, and C, that Buller District Council is the council identified in the heads of agreement as responsible for the administration of the administrative matters, which will include the raising of debt funding. Okay, this has been prepared by John Salmon. Are there any questions? Councillor Reading.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got three questions at the moment. There's no mention in the agenda item about existing debt with the Three Waters that BDC currently hold, which is in the vicinity of between $20 and $25 million. So where does it say in here in the agreement that the existing debt of, let's say, 25 million associated water will be transferred to the new CCO? That's question one, please.
Thank you. John, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, any financial related questions, I'm going to pass over to Douglas, who is our finance lead for the project. So Douglas, if you'd be happy to take that one over.
Thanks, John. Douglas?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. So the debt, just like all assets that are related to waters for the three councils, they all transfer through to the new entity. That's all covered in the Water Services Delivery Plan, which was, as the report says, adopted back in August 2025.
Thanks, Douglas. You have a second question, Colin?
Paragraph 26 on the agenda item. Paragraph 26 says, based on the above LGA statements, the CCO set up financial lead has approached the LGFA regarding the above debt raising facility, and they have advised that they will allow Buller on behalf of the three councils to borrow the money. Now, that advice, normally something like
Have a
that.
question
yes.
coming, Colin?
I'm just reading it now,
Thank you.
what it is. Where is the write-up on the fact that LGA will specifically fund Buller on behalf of the three district councils?
Okay, Douglas, could you answer that question for us?
Yes, your worship, I can. We have an email trail covering that and acknowledging the fact that it's a multi-CCO on the West Coast and that the arrangement will be covering all three councils. It'll be an extension to the existing relationship that Buller has, because that's the way it needs to work. But yes, we've got adequate documentation to cover that arrangement off. I mean, I am meeting with the LGFA next week on matters related to set up with the water company, so that'll be covered in that process as well.
Thanks, Douglas. One last one, Colin.
Last question, Mr. Mayor, is I can see nothing in here. Why would independent directors who are bound by legislation, why would they be taking on this debt? Where is the fact that they are prepared to take on this debt without any revenues up front? They're taking on debt. Therefore, the company at the start is insolvent. And supposedly they're going to take on the 25 million debt from BDC.
Okay.
I want to know where it says that the directors are obliged to take on this debt.
Thank you. Either Douglas or Teresa, could you answer that question for us?
But technically, it's the water company being set up, and the water service delivery plan is the setup document that takes on the debt. The directors themselves obviously are governing the company that takes over that debt. The directors aren't appointed yet, but obviously as the directors are going through that process of appointment, one of the key documents that they will be obviously reading is understanding the water service delivery plan. That plan is obviously a public document, and it has been approved, as you all know, by the Secretary of Local Government as being meets the requirements under the Local Water Done Well legislation and regulations.
Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds.
First, if I ask my question, just to get a clarification first. Was it in committee where we were informed of the value of assets underneath one of our water reserves? And I'll mention that figure here.
Who can answer that question? Can you repeat the question?
We've been informed that one of our water reserves has a substantial asset underneath it, where a figure has been mentioned as to its value. Was that in committee when that was informed of?
What is that?
Sorry, through the chair, is there a certain reserve that we're talking about, Councillor Reynolds?
Oh, obviously it's not in committee, otherwise someone recall. It's been reported that it's $1 billion worth of coal under the water, under the Westport's water supply water reserve. My question is, will ownership of that reserve go into this new entity and their ability to dispose of that asset as they prefer?
So
Through the chair, we're talking about the reserve land. That's not our land.
you have another question, Paul?
The question is relating to, it's not our land. Do we have the ability to use the value of that land?
I don't know. If I understand your question, no, I don't. No, it's not the case.
Maybe I need to elaborate. It's possible that if we've got a water reserve with a substantial asset worth $1 billion, that we can negotiate with the owner, being the Crown, that we part with that asset, which will enable the longevity of our coal mining in this district. So we get a double win out of this, and we also get a funding out of that $1 billion reserve would you pay off our debt on all water reserves if we had a local council control organisation rather than ceding whatever control over that asset may be? But we've got the ability to negotiate with the Crown at the moment over that asset. And do we cede that ability to perhaps negotiate?
Councillor. Yeah, councillor Forbes.
I believe, having been on the group steering group, that I've heard that the water reserves remain under the councils. So I don't believe that the that the new entity has been set up to have the ability to take over reserves.
Assets only.
Only the water assets. So that's as I understand it, for your information, I stand to be corrected.
Thank you, councillor. Teresa, Teresa?
Yeah, sorry, I'm really struggling to find the hands up button, which is a bit hopeless of me. So yes, in terms of what gets transferred over, we haven't actually completely defined that. We have a list of what assets we would expect to transfer over. We would only be looking to transfer over things that are very fee simple. Anything that's reserve, if there's water assets that are linked up to a reserve, then we would be looking at having an agreement with whoever owns that in order to access the assets. We already have some experience from EOI, which is the Hamilton and Waikato entity, of doing the transfers, and definitely we'd only be looking at things that are very simple and specific to water. Otherwise, we'd be looking at relationship and service level agreements. However, to confirm, it hasn't been all settled yet, but that's the approach we'll be looking to take.
Thanks, Teresa. Councillor Reynolds, you have another question? Not. Councillor Rutherford?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, obviously we've all been informed by a recent email chain that there was no work done when agreeing to joining the CCO. There was no work done in relation to the residual effect on our current staff setup. I accept that work hasn't happened, but I want assurances that if this was to go ahead, the new CCO, that the savings as touted in the advantages will not just be phantom savings that potentially could be completely offset by continuing costs within our existing structure. What guarantee is there that cost saving, as indicated, will in fact materialise and not be offset by costs remaining within district council that offset that saving?
Thanks, councillor. Douglas, can you help us with that one?
I can't comment obviously on council savings or that type of thing. What I would just remind us all is that the Water Surface Delivery Plan does identify as part of its risks and constraints the issues related to cost savings with getting a larger organisation, although West Coast Water is still a smaller organisation in the scheme of things. Procurement and how we procure will be super key, and you may recall the DIA at the workshop last week did identify that they're already looking at ways how they can procure nationally certain items for the water entities that they all need, but procure in a way where there are discounted buying abilities to do that. So in other words, bulking up as much as possible your national approach. So obviously the challenge, the outcome we're all seeking is improved. The key thing you will find is that this entity which specialises on water delivery will focus on nothing else day in, day out, and you will keep it to account by your statements of expectations and the regular reporting on the sort of matters that Councillor Rutherford is identifying.
Thanks, Douglas. Councillor Reynolds and then Councillor Hawes.
If I could give some clarity to Councillor Rutherford's question regarding.
If you have a question, we're in question time. You can save that until discussion. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's with Douglas. Obviously, he's made a statement that this is going to focus solely on this entity, is going to focus solely on. And that's the reason why it's going to.
You're breaking up. You might need to repeat.
Okay, I was just asking for a point of clarity before I continue. That those, can you hear me, Ernest? You can't.
Change mic, perhaps.
About this one, can you hear me on this one?
Yeah.
There you go. That deliberately sabotaged me. Hey, this is for Douglas. You just made a statement that one of the reasons this is going to be so efficient is because this new entity is going to focus solely on water, have solely a water focus. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what I stated.
Yeah, so my question then is around, as we all know, these water assets all travel beneath our hard surfaces, our footpaths, our roads, etc., which are all going to be part of Buller District Council's operation, the remaining less than 2/3 of the operation. And if this entity is only focusing solely on water and making decisions around its water infrastructure, how is that then going to work in effectively with roading replacement, footpath replacements, all of those hard surface infrastructures that may very well be replaced brand new and then require digging up again to be then replaced brand new again?
Okay,
Rather than Douglas, I think Anthony can address that.
So the new water entity will be a utility provider like Chorus or the electricity companies, and be required to follow the utility rules like any other utility provider. There will be coordination as much as possible between utility providers and council, and given it to CCO, we should expect even better coordination than we have potentially with some of the other utilities.
thanks, Anthony. Okay, we've got councillor Sampson and councillor Barry. I'm getting them.
Right, I've got a couple of three. How much has been, how much to date have we racked up costs with the likes of Teresa and John, etc.? And where do these costs lie?
I can take that one. Up to the, and there's a mistake made in terms of the report. The report's dated to the 31st of December, but that was for the previous council report. So we have got a more updated version that's been shared with the chief executives. To date, up to last Friday, we'd spent $303,000. In terms of my cost, I'm a salaried staff member, so there's certainly no cost on me. Douglas and Teresa are separate. We've got a breakdown of both costs, all costs on a to date of all contractors that we've got, and we'd be happy to share it if you would.
So just to clarify, John, that 303 is less 250, right?
The agenda was produced, it will need to pay, I think it equals about 60,000.
About 60,000 on that, okay. So has the clock started ticking for your
Sorry,
time
if I
now?
just go through the chair with one response I would make as well. That isn't just Teresa and Douglas's cost. We've got some significant financial cost, legal costs through Simpson Grierson as well that's been paid as well. So it should be one to point out.
One more, Rosalie.
I still haven't got the clarity over the debt that the Buller Council hold at the present time for water and wastewater. Was that 25 million, or it was sort of toot and fro about 20, about 25? And this is the thing that's really got me concerned, that we're given figures and making assumptions, but we've,
Thanks, Rosalie. So could you just repeat the question for us?
rightio, how much at present is the debt for our water on the BDC books for water and wastewater?
Thank you. John, can you answer that?
It's in the water services delivery plan, through the chair, sorry, it's in the water services delivery plan what our debt looks like, but I think Douglas may be able to answer a more up-to-date version. We haven't got a number in terms of that I could give you right now, however, I can get it relatively quickly.
Douglas?
The numbers are in the water service delivery plan in terms of our forecasts. The most key point though is that we will get updates from the chief financial officers, and we're looking to put another one request out in the next couple of weeks, seeking an update as to debt. Debt also needs to be defined as external debt that they have from either the LGFA or perhaps an external bank. But they also need to identify internal debt, which is where they've used cash deposits in the past. So those numbers are very important, and they will be updated right up until the last day of transfer, so that every piece of debt that relates to the water's activities of the councils prior to the setup of the water company will be transferred over, so that there is no residual debt left relating to waters within a council.
Thanks, Douglas.
No, the question I'm asking is, what at the present time is the debt? Is it 25 million?
Douglas is trying to answer.
So the number of 25 million is I don't believe that'll be the number today. You would need to get the current number from your chief financial officer, what your water's balance is today. The key point I just wanted to assure all councillors of is that the debt that transfers over will be every piece of water's debt, wastewater, water, drinking water, and stormwater. So we will make sure that you are not left with any. If that's where your concern is being left with debt, then that won't be the case. That'll be all identified and transferred across.
Thanks, Douglas. Leslie, are we able to get that number to Rosalie at some point?
Not in the very, very near future, because for years debt has just been added together. It hasn't been separated out. So we need to go through a process of reverse engineering that to see what was related to what. I believe the figure that was put in the plan was, forgive me if I'm wrong, Douglas, but it was a estimate.
It would have been.
So the long-term plan does include a breakdown between waters, wastewater, and other activities. Ms. Crichton's quite right, though. You would need to just update that from that's forecast and done for each year. We would just need to make sure that we give you the actual positions and then what the forecasts are for the next 18 months. Probably the best way forward on this one, Your Worship, is that Ms. Crichton and I just prepare a statement in the next few weeks, because you'll know you're finishing up your June 25 annual report process, and then everyone knows exactly what the position sits for the three waters activities.
Thanks, Douglas. Okay, Rosalie,
So carrying on, no, it's still carrying on from that same question as to how.
Rosalie, order. I'd ask you to take that question up with Leslie in due course, please.
Okay, right. The next question is
move on one more, yeah.
the $112,000 that we will be paying in interest. Where does that come from? Does it come from the ratepayer from BDC ratepayers to be paid back by the water entity? But presumably that's where it is. But where does it come from?
Okay, Douglas. Interest.
Yes. Well, thank you, Worship. Ultimately, the interest, as we've identified, is one of the costs that are part of the $5 million. That $5 million forms the opening debt. It will be paid back over time through the charges that the water company lets on its services. So it will be paid. The people who pay the charges are, of course, the ratepayers at the current place, who will become, consumers for the water company into the future.
Thanks, Douglas. Thank you, Councillor. We're going to move on now to Deputy Mayor Shane.
This is probably a question for Teresa, maybe, and I don't actually even know if you guys can answer it, but there is a real lack of even knowledge about this in our community, about the separation of water. My question is around the the information that is or should be going out in the media, like, when will we see more information going out to the communities around what they can expect over the next 12 months? Because I feel like the people I talk to actually have no idea about this at the present point in time.
So we have developed a communication and engagement plan. So I've been working with the communication engagement leads from each of the 3 councils. We are waiting for the meeting that we're hopefully having next week. But yes, we would definitely be looking at increasing our communications and engagement from that point. 100%. It's a key part of the programme.
Can I just suggest that it would be quite good to have some kind of drop-in or wall centre when you do it, so that people can be reading stuff continuously. That's
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got Councillor Reynolds and then Councillor Hingston and then Councillor Kerner.
Yes, I've got 3 questions. And one relates to the promises this regional water entity is going to deliver economies for our people. We had that promise when there was reorganisation of boroughs and counties into district councils. The words used then are the same as the ones used now. Economy of scale, reduce costs. That delivered the exact opposite. Is there any more certainty in the promises with this that we're going to see efficiency?
Teresa?
So we haven't defined exactly how the operating model is going to work yet, because we still have some decisions that need to be made and they need to be made right. And it aligns back to an earlier question about how the council is going to be, not in a worse situation. So we're looking at things like shared services and how we can work together. So there are still some questions, some things outstanding that, we're working through and we'll be coming back to for approval for them, but they're designed to make sure that the operating model for us and then what's required for each council is as efficient as possible. In terms of the savings, I mean, Douglas would talk to this financially. Having the ability to raise more debt, first of all, it enables some of the renewals and things to be done more quickly, and some of the challenges you have around water safety. But also it enables a better approach to renewals planning that reduces the sort of reactive maintenance and those kind of challenges that you have at the moment. So yes, we are anticipating an operating efficiency saving. Now we still have, and you know this from the meeting you had, the workshop with the DIA, we don't have a huge amount of scale. This is a small company, but it's the option that we have. So, the operating efficiency savings are not going to be on the same scale as Watercare because it's a lot smaller, but we still have opportunities because we can raise more debt so that we can use the money wisely like you would any other utility company. Douglas, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Thanks, Teresa.
I think we need to add to that. If I can just add, one of the things that during public consultation last year, and it was also reinforced at the meeting with the DIA a week or so ago, is the CCO cost will be more expensive than what we are doing now. But of all of the options we looked at, this was the cheapest of the options moving forward. There were assumptions around efficiencies based on scale and other things, but all of those assumptions were in all of the options that we looked at. This option now, yes, it will be, because that's the cost of lifting the services to what we are required to achieve.
Thanks, Anthony. Councillor Hingston.
I did said 3 questions.
Yeah, Councillor Reynolds, sorry, and Councillor Hingston.
The second question, moving on from 1989 to more recent initiatives. We were forced by government to have a regional district plan in the interest of efficiency, only to cost a couple of million. So we had our staff estimate. We got assurances, yeah, about 2 million. As we,
Point of order? I don't think our staff estimated that, obviously.
or the staff of local authorities somewhere came up with a figure of what it was going to cost.
Yeah, councillor,
Whether
we
that was
need
done at
to move
district or not.
on. So if you've got a question,
The two blew out to over 10, which will be over 12 by the time it's rated for with GST added on. And seeing it will be borrowed money, and over time, ratepayers will have to pay 25 million for that. Have we got any more certainty with the cost of a combined council organisation for water that costs won't blow out in a like manner? What
thanks,
certainty have we
councillor.
got?
Yeah, I think you know, that's been pretty much discussed, but I'll ask Douglas to have a final word on that, if you would.
Thank you, Worship. It will all come down to, and Teresa used quite quickly the word shared service. So think shared service with the councils, but think shared service with any other entity in this water space. So it could very well be long term, you're trying to get shared service or relationships with other companies in New Zealand where they're prepared to share their knowledge or their cost structures or whatever. Important couple of pages in the water service delivery plan was circulated to you, I believe, in the last 10 days, and that's it relates to how the council, the water company, the regional council, and anyone in reality who's got an ability to have a ratepayer resident as a consumer needs to work together and work in a combined manner to try and make sure their overall costs to the West Coast consumers is as low as possible. And it's that joined up thinking about who's has the priority works to be done to be funded will be really key to making sure we minimise and limit the charges of all service charges, whether it's electricity or water or council rates moving forward. It's super critical that there is some sort of structure put in place to keep challenging ourselves on that matter.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, we're going to move on. Councillor Hingston.
The third question. I said
Three question then. Thank you.
So the third question is, will this new authority raise money from people that already have their own septic tank, their own water supply? Will this new authority raise money from people that are no longer, that are not, at the moment not paying council infrastructure?
Through your worship, no, the charges are only related to people who are serviced by the water sector. And in terms of people who have a water tank or
that needs a bit of clarity through you, Mr. Chair, that I believe that someone that might be on public water, you might have one charge, so they end up paying for town sewage schemes when they've got their own septic tank. Is there a process to separate those that are either on just town water or just, some like the residents in Westport are on all three. Carter's Beach only has connected to sewage and water, but not stormwater. Like myself, I've got my own septic tank, my own stormwater, but I'm connected to town water. Am I liable to be billed the same amount and rates only connected to water?
Okay, I think we've got your question.
Yeah, I guess it depends. When it comes to drinking water, it depends if there's a connection within 50 metres of the property or 100 metres, one of the two. You'll be charged a half rate, and ultimately because then they've got the ability to connect to that water. So there's no mandate. Sorry.
So I think the question is, if you've got water, are you charged for water or are you charged for everything?
Yeah.
The plan, the expectation is if you're connected to water, you pay for water. If you're connected to sewer, you're connected to sewer. There is still to be a yet to be determined way of charging for stormwater.
Well, I understand there'll be three separate charges. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hingston.
Yeah, so quick question. This is a traditional way. Just to clarify, I'm sorry, but
can you use your microphone?
Sorry. Rosalie's question wasn't answered to my satisfaction, and I don't think to hers. And I think it's reasonable to accept that the cost of the water bill to date, the debt, we should have a rough order of magnitude. I mean, is it 20 million? Is it 23? Is it 25? We don't need the exact figures, but I think a rough order of magnitude is reasonable to expect. Can we get a rough order of magnitude?
I think Leslie's answered that question, but I'll put it to Leslie again.
The total debt attributable to water services currently as part of the water service delivery plan is $32.5 million. 32.5.
32.5. Thank you. So the second part of my second question is that $32 million going to be taken off our, I think it's estimated about $49 million debt that we're servicing at the moment?
Yes.
Will that $32 million be taken off that?
Yes. Yes.
So therefore, we would see a lower drag on our rates.
So the debt transfers across, whatever the debt figure ends up as, and then obviously the revenue and the costs all get transferred across the US.
So that's a real benefit for us.
It's a change for us.
The rate.
It is, yeah, in terms of the impact on rates will be a positive one. Yes.
Thank you. And the third question I have is the savings that was quite clearly articulated by staff in their response. We're not going to have savings now, but what we've got is we've got the best option going forward to reduce the increases to water rates. That's what I heard. And I heard a rough order of magnitude that it's going to be in and around.
Yeah, we've got a question.
There's a question.
Next.
$1,000 per household is the estimated increase. What was the estimated increase if we went by ourselves and not with the water TCO?
From memory, and I did this presentation about 5 or 6 times last year, so I should remember. I think the difference between what we're planning to do with the multi-CCO and the next best option was in the order of $1,000 a year per household.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So we've got Councillor Curnow, then we've got Councillor O'Keefe.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My question goes down a bit of a different pathway to the previous ones, and it's addressed to our own council staff. So it relates to a comment that was made by Mr. Foster from the Department of Internal Affairs a couple of weeks ago. He was questioned about the level of hardship that would be imposed on people in our community with maybe the least ability to pay. Now, I'm paraphrasing Mr. Foster, but he was actually highly critical of our current rating and charging structure. He made the statement that the uniform charging system that we have for water and sewage connections was placing a disproportionately unfair burden on people in lower value housing. He made the point that there is a strong correlation between capital value and ability to pay. So my question to our staff is, at what point in this process do we as Buller District councillors get the opportunity to review our charging rating structure in such a way that perhaps we can introduce a more equitable charging system across our communities?
As I've said previously, the right time to do a review for ourselves is for the LTP, which is at the same time as this water entity. We won't have any say in that charging from the water entity. And I mean, I say staff.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor O'Keefe. Rosalie asked 3 questions before. You're next.
I'm going to move staff's recommendation 1 and 2.
Microphone. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'd like to move the draft recommendation 1 and 2.
I have seconded by Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor. These be discussed individually, please. 1, 2, A, B.
The motion's already been made and seconded. So Thank you. I've had clarification from Caitlin. Councillor Reynolds, Colin has actually made an amendment to that, so if you can explain that, please, Caitlin.
So you would like them voted on separately?
Through the mayor, I'd like 1, and then 2, A, B, and C. So there'll be 4, please.
Councillor Keith.
I'm happy with that. If they want to be moved individually, I'm fine with that.
Deputy Mayor. Okay, so we'll look at number 1, which is endorses to set up a budget of 5 million for the West Coast Services Council controlled organisation. Do we have a mover for that?
No, so they've been moved and seconded.
Moved and seconded. Okay, so we just go to a discussion. Councillor Rutherford.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, my position has not changed since we first considered this recommendation almost a month ago now. I will be voting against it on the basis that by voting in favour automatically includes us moving down the path of being part of this organisation. By not endorsing the borrowing the money to set it up, by implication indicates that we are withdrawing, if you like. I know that there is a lot of legal opinion about our ability to withdraw. However, my concern a month ago was affordability. Gee whiz, if that was a concern a month ago, what does it look like today? There's not one person in this room that would not agree with me that our community is in for a really, really rough ride. I'm allowed 5 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yep, very well.
So I am very strongly of the view that we as a council should be just taking a big deep breath and looking to the future about how we can sustain our community over what will be very, very difficult times moving ahead. I believe that we should be going back to the regulator and asking, can we work with them at a level that sees us working to achieve their desired outcomes, but going back to the drawing board. We already know that there are other options for some of our smaller water supplies. And I note, of course, here in the letter from DIA, what does it go? Necessary due to exceptional circumstances. Well, if these aren't exceptional circumstances we're facing at the moment, I don't know what they are. I believe that the opportunity exists for us to table to say, hang on, guys, it might be cheaper to achieve if you're going to go ahead and do everything as per the plan indicated. But I believe we should be taking a breath and breaking it back down and withdrawing from the CCO and asking for consideration from the regulator to reappraise our whole situation. So as I indicated, I will be voting against.
Thank you, Councillor. I just remind councillors that what we've got in front of us here is not relitigating whether we stay in or leave the water entity that is being pulled together at the moment. It is around the $5 million and whether Bullet is actually going to raise that or not. So thank you, Councillor. I hear what you have to say. If we were, and I may stand to be corrected, if we were going to go down the track of deciding whether we were looking to exit it in some way, then that would need to be something that was brought back and agreed to around the table. Where are we, Deputy Mayor? And then Councillor Hastings.
I think affordability is an issue for us all, but I also know that this is legislation and we were told very clearly that affordability was not a reason to pull out. There are other places around New Zealand that are going to struggle with this, not just the Buller district, and saying that we will have people that will struggle. If we do not do this, we will have some form of team come in to oversee whatever goes forward. This process will continue on regardless. We will use our voice we'll lose our voice in this, but we will also run the risk of losing our voice in local government reform, because what this says is we're not prepared to work with other councils. Whether that's what you mean or what you don't mean, this is a signal we give central government. For this reason, and with huge concern, I will be voting for it. But I think we all have reservations.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I concur. The next on the list is Councillor Hingston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to vote in favour of this motion because I disagree with Councillor Rutherford's assessment. I think if I could sum up, taking a pause, not going down, not approving this, the consequences would be not quite disastrous, but they would be along the lines of kicking the can down the road, which we've done for 30 years and paying for our water assets. And that would generate multiple times more debt and liability of the subsequent generations. This is a generational thing. This is a 30-year plan. So if we don't pay it now, and it was quite clearly made by the DIA briefing, if we don't pay for it now, it's going to cost us exponentially more in 10 years' time. So while I appreciate, I don't feel comfortable taking on this amount of debt. The amount of debt is going to slide over to the CCO. Yes, it still needs to be paid, but it's going to take a lot of pressure off us and our rates. And that's got to be a good thing for Buller. Yes, it's going to raise the water rates, but they were going to be raised anyway. And the CCO can access more debt funding than we can at a lower rate. So if we go over our certain rate, I think it's 1.5, they said, in that order, for borrowing to pay for our water assets if we decide to keep them. What's going to happen is we're going to be charged, have to go out to a wider market, charged a huge amount more interest if we can get it. Potentially we won't get it. And then we're going to have to get the ratepayers to pay for it. So you're going to see a subsequent rate rise. I could be catastrophizing here, but in the region of 20 to 40 to 50%, I don't know. But I know it's going to be significant if you want to pay for 30 years worth of water infrastructure with council rates, if you don't put them on a CCO and they access that debt funding. So I respect the opinion that I don't like the idea of taking on more debt, but there is a difference between types of debt. Debt where you take on to pay the bills of today and you kick the can down the road for the future is not good debt. Debt where you invest in assets that will give you a return in the future and will minimize your debt servicing across the board is a better form of debt to take on. So I just leave that with people to consider, is that if you kick the can down the road, i.e. you vote against this motion, then quite accurately, as pointed out by Phil, is that you're saying pretty much no to the water CCO or no to the shared approach with our regional partners. And that is going to have consequences that will far outweigh my concerns. The other area that I think we need to think about is our credibility with our other partners. I, for one, am confident that if we position ourselves in the right place, we can negotiate the terms of the water CCO to an equitable, and I think it's got to be fair and equitable for sure, given the different assets and liabilities of each of the districts, that we can actually negotiate that. We just have to be attuned to what our partners' needs are, i.e. Grey and Westland, and what our ratepayers' needs are. And we can do that. That's a challenge, but I think we can do that. And I think if we pull out now, we will pay a huge price in our credibility as a district, that's able to make the hard decisions. I know it's not going to be popular. I agree with Phil. it's not going to be popular, but it's one of those decisions that leaders have to make when you've got the figures before us. You know, kicking the can down the road is not acceptable. It's not going to end well. Let's acknowledge that we've got these assets we have to pay for. Let's structure the best form of finance. Let's get the pressure of paying for water off our rates that put pressure on things like community services, roads, and everything else that we all try and maintain. And let's negotiate with our fellow districts a way forward with this water CCO where they work for us, they are answerable to us, and they can also, they're answerable to us to help us minimise the adverse impacts on our ratepayers of what the
Thank you, Councillor Hinkson. That's very, very good points there, and I concur. I think that the government has made it, quite clear that in terms of the can being kicked down the road, it's not just in this district, but it's districts all around the country, and we can't continue to do that. So thank you for that. Councillor Sampson.
Right, I concur with Phil by agreeing to the 5 million. We're agreeing to going down the road of the CCO, and some of the concerns I have with what I was going to question, but I'll make it as a comment now. Paragraph 21, that our staff, BDC's role, procuring and entering contracts for services processing and paying invoices and reporting frameworks. Well, I'm really concerned on that point alone because we keep hearing that our staff are under the pump as it is and putting extra work on them for other groups. There's a lot. And then reading this, I read it and I think, well, if we don't go with it, we're going to go to hell. And I've never thought about going to heaven, so I'm prepared to go to hell.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll make one just observation there. You made the comment that if we don't go with this approval for the 5 million, then that's something along the lines about signalling we're going to pull out. I just need to remind everybody that the decision is made for us to be in this company, and if we were going to pull out, that's another issue altogether. Where did I get to? Colin.
Mr. Mayor, so I'm talking and discussing only the $5 million, item 1. For me, and I made it clear when we discussed it a little while ago, $5 million proposed budget, set-up budget, is gold-plated. Say that about it, gold-plated. And the reason why I say that is that each of the 4 SLT members are going to get a motor vehicle each. They're going to get a remuneration higher than what some of the CEOs down here and they on the West Coast are receiving. It is gold-plated. Now, I hear what you're saying about decisions already made. What we're talking about now is endorsing the $5 million. Well, it's not actually $5 million because we've already been given $250,000 from central government. The amount that we're now talking about is 4750. Why the hell we talk about 5 million? I don't know. So let's talk about 4750. I'm going to say to you, Mr. Mayor, that we should be looking at 4 million, and that is what the new governance in the proposed CCO will be asked to deliver to. $4 million, because I know through experience with BDC and with other councils, you put in a contingency of 400,000 like we've got there, it gets spent and there's no accountability for that 400,000. No, I've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Can I remind you, Councillor, can I just say, Councillor,
yes.
Okay, that we're not here to beat up on staff.
So when was I beating up on staff?
I just asked you to keep that.
I'm telling you now, Mr. Mayor, that I'm not beating up on staff. I'm talking about the $5 million. Thank you.
Order. I'd like you to keep that in mind. Carry on.
You don't need to remind me of that.
You can carry on.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now then, $5 million. I believe we need about $4 million so that at least the new board will be accountable for a set amount of $4 million. If they go over, they come back to council and they ask for more and they explain why they need more. At the moment, they've got a ticket around the world, as far as I'm concerned, with the 5 million. Bring it down to 4 million and you'll get my vote.
Thank you, councillor. I wonder if Douglas, if you could comment on the $5 million and where I'm coming from. What I'm thinking is that $5 million, if it takes $5 million, that's what it will take. But if it doesn't take $5 million, what's the result?
Thank you, Worship. So council really makes a good point. We're talking about a cost budget allowed of 5 million. The funding is the number of 4.75 million. He's also alluded to two numbers in that budget of 5 million. There is the contingency, and obviously contingencies need to be included, but the expectation is that if your budgeting is good, contingency is not needed. Another number relates to assets. Now, part of those assets relate to the management team that are being proposed for the water company, and about half of that figure of 460,000 from memory relates to vehicles that will be purchased from the councils at their book value and transferred from the councils by a settlement process through to the water company. So sort of that's obviously an in and an out transaction between the two. If your question is, would we set a lower number? And then you come back to us, by that I mean the board of directors, then that is obviously a discussion that the council could have with amongst the other two councils. I suppose that the thing that gives hopefully some confidence is that we are reporting, on a monthly basis to the CEO relationship, and we can report to whatever governance was deemed appropriate. If and I'm not so trying to want to be difficult here, but if you want to make it 4 million and work forward, then that's fine. And if there has to be a report to explain where we are with that 4 million, then that would be what you're putting in place. I would like to think that the reporting processes we've got will give you confidence that if we are having difficulty keeping within the numbers that are there, you'll get early warnings of that to be able to guide or tell us what you think needs to be done. I mean, ultimately, it's the board of directors you're putting in place who are taking this responsibility for completing the setup and establishment, and they're the ones that we're reporting to you early on, and they would want to be reporting to you that they have delivered the setup under budget. I'm absolutely sure of that.
Thanks, Douglas. Councillor O'Keefe. Oh, sorry. Where have we got? Go back. Councillor Curnow, sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you. Look, I agree with Councillor Rutherford's sentiments, but I sadly have to disagree with his conclusion. I do think that the pragmatic and expedient thing to do is to support this resolution. But I note the comments made at the Westland District Council meeting the other day by Mr. Madgwick, the iwi rep. He said, and I quote, "We're on this conveyor belt and we need to just continue. The government is really firm on this and it's not something we can stop right now," unquote. Emphasis on those last two words, right now. We do live in volatile, dynamic political times. I'm going to state right now, I think that this proposal is an absolute crock. It's not sustainable. It can't last. We've been faced basically with two quite different approaches to managing water infrastructure. We had one approach, the previous government, that was rejected at the last election, I believe wrongly. It is inevitable, in my view, that the two major parties, political parties, will have to reach some kind of consensus around this issue. It's inevitable. That is a process that we're not going to be very closely involved with, but nevertheless, it's one that will impact on us. So, reiterate, this is a crock. It's not going to work, but the sensible, pragmatic thing to do now, echoing Councillor Barry's comments, is to go with the flow. Thanks.
No pun intended. Thank you, councillor. I think councillor Hawes, I've got you down here, and then Tony, councillor O'Keefe.
Where to start? It's, you know, I appreciate councillor Curno's sage advice. I think in terms of sitting around this table, we're here for exactly that. We're here to listen to each other's concerns, each other's, you know, questions of clarity, and then be able to get to a position where we can vote one way or another. And that's what a council is about. So it's about having a whole range of different views, and having waited till this time, I'm grateful that councillor Curno has given us exactly why he's going to be voting for this, despite the fact that he has quite categorically stated that it's a crock, and I agree entirely. Some things that I'd just like to cover over while I've got a chance to sit here and I hear the discussion around the table. Some things I've taken on board positively, some things I take on board and think that's not correct, and I'd just like to correct a few things here. One, we're in this position because of central government direction. Back when this water infrastructure was installed, it came out of creeks up on the hill, down to a dam, to a holding pond, fed straight into town. There was no treatment process. There was no investment in any of that infrastructure. There was no concern around whether some bug was going to kill the entire town. And in the 90 to 100 years that it operated like that, no large scale bugs came into town and killed the town. That's fine. What brings me to this point is the fact that we have, over the last 30 years, invested in considerable amount. The $30-odd million in debt that's sitting in those accounts now at the present time was all incurred to upgrade different systems. Westport got a sewerage treatment plant over there, well around, I believe, the $10 million mark. It got a water treatment and full Monty system up on the hill that feeds down into town, another $10-odd million mark. These things didn't exist before. You drank swamp water coming out of a creek. Now you've got that. There's been a massive amount of infrastructure that was driven by government direction. Government directed that these things must be done. They mandated it, and council had to turn around and respond and borrow that money, $30-odd million, as we've been informed, to do those things. Not just in Westport. The same thing happened in Reefton. The same thing happened in Anangahua Junction. All of that debt that you see there is debt because of those mandated upgrades that we've had. So we're already starting from a position of that debt. And then I hear that, okay, well, that's going to be reduced from council debt and transferred to a water entity. And therefore, it's going to give us more headroom, more borrowing headroom. The same people are going to be paying. The same people are paying the water and the sewerage fees that are going to be going into the future, as they're going to be paying the rates. So it doesn't matter whether the debt's in one pocket or in the other pocket, it's still in the same pair of trousers. So, you know, they're just two cheeks of the same backside, if you like. So we're going into this, we understand it's a crock. I mean, I came along here absolutely convinced that I would vote against this. Sitting around here listening now, I feel a responsibility to Deputy Mayor Shane, to Councillor Curno, you people who have got the bollocks to stand up and say this is absolutely against everything that I ever thought about, but I understand that I must do this. And I feel that I'm sitting here walking away from something as a coward if I can't stand there and say that I fully agree with all of the arguments against this. I understand that this water entity is a crock of crap being dropped on us by a government. I understand that we have no information whatsoever about where these savings are coming from. I also understand the only identified savings that have any validity is in that this is being a whole different way of dealing with debt. This is about pushing debt out 50 years with no capital repayment. This is purely about an interest-only debt for 50 years. That's well beyond my lifetime. That's probably well beyond my children's lifetime. So this is an absolute crock of crap from whichever way you look at it, driven on us by a government trying to buy, or an opposition trying to buy its way into government at the last election. They overrode what was going to be a workable solution nationally, and they introduced something, and by putting a few measly weaselly words around it, local water done well, allowing people to think that they're going to get to carry on owning their water and carry on being self-determining, and yet behind the scenes, sending letters like this that say that we've got a gun to our head and that we need to vote in favour of it carrying on. So I've said it publicly where I stand. I'm not going to vote again. I'm going to vote for this because I'm voting for Ray. I'm voting for Deputy Mayor Shane. I'm voting for Mayor Chris because the people, well, and the other two, if that's your views around this table. But I've heard it stated that these people have said that it's a crock of crap, and that I agree with. So I won't let you stand alone. I will actually shoulder the responsibility and walk with you guys. But by God, this is going to be an accountability issue that people of this district need to think about when they get to vote this year. The people that have foisted this on us, foisted this debt for 50 years into the future, beyond my children's lifetime, with no capital repayment, those people need to be held to account at this next election.
Thank you, Councillor. That's very, very sober. Councillor Reynolds, what's up? Oh, sorry, Councillor O'Keefe. Oh, sorry, Linda, I didn't spot that. Councillor Webb.
I'll keep mine brief, but I'll just say I totally agree with Councillor Rutherford, and I truly believe that an in-house business unit would be best, as I don't believe these costings that are reliable. I guess just a point about Councillor Hinkston's points, he's talking about ratepayers. In the end, we're all the same ratepayers, so it doesn't actually matter where it's the same people that are going to be paying at the end of the day. Yeah, I guess for me, I agree with what you're saying, Dave. You know, it is a crock. We've been pushed into this, and again, I will continue to vote the way that I have been voting, that I'm totally against this, and I'm totally against us taking on this $5 million of debt and being in charge of that. I do want to note too, just with Mayor Chris interjecting after everybody's discussion or statements, I'm not sure where in the standing orders that it allows somebody to have
Thank you for that, Councillor. I'll look into that.
But yeah, I will be voting against this, basically reiterating what Councillor Rutherford has already said.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Then we have Councillor O'Keefe.
Being from the previous council table, who actually voted for the delivery service plan, that into everybody around the table was opposed to this. You know, it's not a popularity contest and who speaks the strongest around who's against it and who's for it. I don't think anybody is actually for this. It's very clearly a mandate from central government. That the choice that we have upon us is the $5 million drawdown. I'm also going to state too that, you know, staff has also said that they only draw down what they're spending. So I suppose, you know, can we give clear direction to staff to say, and also to the other councils, be very, very, very mindful of what you're spending and try and keep that under the 5. You know, it's really just, you know, a budget, a top figure. But yes, again, you know, it is a mandate. Our choices, Forrie dumpster, extremely burnt toast, you know, I mean, but we're here to make the hard calls, and ultimately, you know, it comes down to our rate payers. If we say no to this, it's going to cost them more. So we've been clearly told this. So at times, you know, it is hard to be voting yes, but you know, ultimately, it's to try and save as much as we can for our rate payers.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Reynolds, just checking the table.
Well, I certainly won't be voting for it. And there's one guiding principle I've got, and I'd stuck it in front of my office on a pin board right in front of my eyes since I was elected here. It's my oath of office. And it says, to the best of my skill and judgment, I will execute and perform with the best interests of the Buller District. Okay, and to me, the best interest is not to cede their assets to a combined council organisation. And we're not kicking the can down the road. We have choices. There are two options, and we read the DIA letter more explicitly. It says we must give effect to an accepted water service delivery. We have a choice between a combined one and an in-house model. If we have an in-house model, we maintain some control over our own asset, and I can come up with a model that will be far more efficient than what we've had in the past. The DIA says that they are available to provide further clarification or advice ahead of your council meeting. So we need to give them that opportunity, which means we shouldn't push through the 5 million today. They've offered to meet with us, and I'd certainly like to discuss with them, because I can come up with a far better plan by meeting the statutory obligations we have. So I'm voting against because council must meet its statutory obligations. However, there was not then, there is not now, any genuine community support for a combined water organisation. When the committee was consulted, they were horrified by both options and voted with their feet from them both. Unfortunately, the previous council selected what I consider was the worst option, the combined option, and the public voted on that too. And the majority of those people that pushed it through are not here now. We've already seen what happens when regional models were exposed, and I've related to two of those previously. So I'll relate another one. When the Nangarhar earthquake hit, civil defence in this area ran well. When the 21 flood hit, Westport didn't have an evacuation plan once we'd gone regional with civil defence. It goes on and on. Regionalisation has not helped the ratepayer in this district ever. We were forced into a combined regional district plan. It cost a couple of million. By the time it's rated, it's going to be up to 25 million that the ratepayer has to pay to put 3 documents into one. I want to address how we arrived at this position. The previous council proceeded on the understanding that there were off-ramps. We heard there were off-ramps. Where's the off-ramp? The off-ramp from the combined model to the in-house model is what I want. I want to comply with the DIA's clarification where we must give effect to an accepted water service delivery model. And that should be a local one where we contain control over our own assets, where we can negotiate with the government over the $1 billion that's under our water reserve for a start, which could end up being an income to us to pay off debt on water. So I want to action the off-ramp and move towards a council-controlled organisation that maintains control of water assets for the people who paid for them. We are now being told that leaving may trigger intervention. If off-ramps are part of the basis of that decision, then they must be real. If they are real, then this council has every right to use them. I'm seeking clarity on where that off-ramp is and how we can access it now. Ownership of our water assets must remain in the hands of the people who paid for them. The combined model introduces additional layers of administration. We are where we are here because the amalgamation of councils put extra layers of administration in, which is gobbling up targeted rates to the effect that over 50% of some targeted rates go into council wages.
Okay,
In effect,
we need to wrap up.
I've got
Councillor.
5 minutes. Well, I'm only about halfway there, I'm sure. Those targeted rates, DIA has looked at them. They said they looked at our forward, at our long-term plan, at the figures we're spending on water. If they took those figures apart, they find they're not loans for water infrastructure. They're loans for staff wages, because that's where the majority of them go. It was never that way in the past. It has grown on us as staff numbers have increased. And there is the problem, we are where we are. Those layers come at a cost. So an overburdensome administration is gobbling up the funds that go from our ratepayers to pay for our water infrastructure. And what DIA is suggesting is just have another layer of administration over the top, and that'll fix the problem. I say pigs might fly. In our case, administration always consumes more than half of the infrastructure.
Councillor, just 1 minute.
Have I had 4 minutes?
Yeah.
We're told that leaving requires exceptional circumstances. Those conditions exist locally and internationally. The world is facing uncertainty at this point, as you must all realise. We have a community under financial duress. Figures have been presented to us here, which show that the level of debt amongst our ratepayers is not level as it has been to 2014. It is on a steep rise up because a turning point's been reached, and we need to take that into account. Putting this, a third of 4.75 million debt divided by 3, our share of it, equates to 4% rate rise. Not on our rate rises, but transferred to another body that will lumber our ratepayers with that cost over time.
That's 5 minutes.
I'm not convinced that the partner fully understands the underlying issues in Buller. They've relied on figures from our long-term plan, but those figures require interpretation. We've been told they're wrong.
Thank you, Paul. That is 5 minutes now. We need to move on. Okay, so we've been right around the table. I think we've moved and seconded. So I think we do need to move on from discussion. Okay, so I'll get Caitlin we don't need to get Caitlin too. We've got the recommendations in front of us. So number one was that council endorses the setup of budget 5 million for the West Water Services Council controlled organisation. All those in favour? Those against?
Name recorded.
That everybody wants their name recorded? Yes.
Yeah.
No, the motion is carried.
The motion is carried. Thank you. Number 2A approves its 1/3 share of the debt funding for the setup costs as per the heads of agreement adopted when the water services delivery plan was approved in August 2005. Sorry? 25. Sorry, showing my age. Okay, do I have somebody who'd like to move that?
It will be moved. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take the vote. All those in favour?
Discussion.
Discussion on each one. Okay, thank you. Councillor Hingston.
Yeah.
Microphone. Sorry, microphone.
Thank everyone for their opinions. I do find that there is occasion where I'm listening to a party political broadcast and I feel like they're talking to engender favour with the ratepayers. To my mind, that's disingenuous. I think leadership in this council is something that, I agree is the crock, what we're doing. But and I agree, Linda quite correctly identified that it's still coming out of the same ratepayers. But I go back to my point that extra 1,000-ish per household will be more if we don't go for the combined CCO. It'll be more. And they said the best other option was 2,000 more. There's other options, 3,000-4,000 more. So it's still better for the ratepayers if you structure the finance right. I mean, I agree. In the best case, we would not have to borrow anything. In the best case, we do it by ourselves. But that is simply not affordable. And we don't have the access to debt funding. And I know I get the reasons. I'd rather not go into debt myself. But the amount of money we're talking about is, correct me if I'm wrong, in the region of about $190 million over the next 30 years, something like that. I mean, and yes, there's a portion of that that is ours, and there's a portion of that that belongs to other councils. But we need to focus on the best possible options going forward, not the fact that you can do it better, which is unproven. You know, I get you might think that. I highly doubt it. But, you know, now is not the time to say, oh, I could do it better than this crop. I don't see any evidence of that. What I see evidence of is I see evidence that we've got to where we are through a series of
Point of order. Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Rutherford.
point of order. We seem to just relitigating the same argument we heard before. We've all had our 5 minutes on this, I believe.
But this is another 5 minutes. Thanks.
I'll give you another short time, Dave. Just
All right. No, I'm just responding to some of the misinformation that's been given by people that have voted against it or the reasons why. I'll leave it at that, but, you know, just focus on what's best for the ratepayer. And I tell you, if you go ahead without a water CCO, with our other partners, it'll be a lot more expensive, whichever side of your butt you take your funds from.
Thanks, Councillor Angston. Okay, Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought we were having a discussion about 2A. No offence there, Dave.
That's right.
It's 2A that we're talking about. Now, I asked that the budget be reduced to 4 million. And here I'm now being asked that BDC accept 1/3 share of the debt funding. So unfortunately, I'm going to be a bit of a hypocrite in that, yes, I agree that we take 1/3 share of the debt funding if we go ahead with the proposal. But I'm not prepared to take 1/3 share of the 5 million. But of course, it just talks about debt funding. So I am going to vote in favour of 2A, but reluctantly, because you have, Mr. Mayor, a very generous gold-plated setup budget, which I stated before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, 2B, or not to be, 2B, that the WSCCO setup costs will initially be debt funded by Buller District Council, with the debt transferring to the Water Services Council controlled organisation from date of operational activity, which is expected to be 1st of July 2007. Councillor Reedy. 27, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're talking about 2B, that the setup costs will be initially debt funded by Buller District Council. Now, at the moment, this council has an accounting function that has been derided by 2 partners of an international reputable accounting firm. Here I'm now expected to accept that when invoices come through for in relation to the setup costs of the proposed CCO, that we will look after this and we will code them and we'll be able to deliver actuals on a regular basis. And I'm sorry to say that this council, we've already said before, it's been mentioned before, that we do not have the staff capability at the moment. We're having to go back over time to look at things. So why is it that BDC are being lumbered with this, with carrying this debt? Why cannot one of the other two councils carry that debt? There is nothing stopping that debt being transferred across to either WDC or GDC. And that's where I'd like to leave it, please. We do not have the capacity.
Thank you, councillor. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. So we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against?
Name recorder, please.
Well,
Sorry, who wanted the name recorded?
yes, Colin.
What is the result of that, please?
Yeah. It's all right. We'll just get that in a minute. I think it's lost. Thank you.
May I put forward, or can someone put forward another recommendation then, please?
Yes.
Yes, please. May I? Oh,
you may.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mentioned before about one of the other councils picking up the tab, picking up the responsibility, and I would like to have this amended now that it's been lost, to put in a new recommendation that we recommend that the responsibility for managing the setup cost debt funding be referred to either GDC or WDC, or words to that effect.
Well, thank you, Colin. I mean, I've just been advised that that would happen by default as a result of not passing to B.
So I don't think it needs a resolution, councillor. I think it needs, we'll just have to go back to the other councils. With no one else it can be. It doesn't have to be. We can't. Is what it is.
Why?
Okay, so would anybody like to add anything further to that? That motion was lost.
So no voting on the last one.
Okay. Okay, so I'm advised there's no point voting on the last one. I think that the council has endorsed the setup budget of 5 million for the Water Services Control Organisation, and also approved its 1/3 share of debt funding for the setup costs. So if I understand that correctly, Simon, that means that when a discussion is had with Grey District and Westland, it will be along the lines of Buller providing 1/3 of the debt funding and relying on the other two councils as well. Does that sound correct?
Oh, sorry.
Well, point of order, like option C, I would like that amended because we still have the responsibility for the administrative matters, which is the procurement and the other administrative matters that we're already carrying out. Is that not correct, Teresa?
Councillor Curnow?
Well, I'd just like to move, and I just foreshadow what I'm going to say. I don't think that C is completely redundant, and I'd like to move an amendment to it, or second Councillor Barry's amendment, that would delete all words after matters. We've already done that effectively. So it would now read that the Buller District Council is the council identified in the heads of agreement as responsible for administrative matters.
Deputy Mayor?
Okay, and I'd like to speak to it.
Yeah, I will second Sapino's motion.
Thank you. Is there any?
I'd like to speak to
Sorry,
it.
if we could just.
So John, just want to outline what you suggested to me there.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you, Simon. One suggestion I would be, I think we should put in front of the table would be potentially that each council would fund a third of the debt funding through the LGFA. Now, of course, the other councils will have to approve of that, but what that does mean is that potentially the third option, choice C, would still be able to be the administrative council if that's what council chose to do. However, my suggestion would be if the choice was not to fund it at all, and one of the other two councils to pick that up, then I don't think we'd be in a position to be the administrative council in terms of the procurement and stuff. So just something you should consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow?
Well, speaking in favour of the amendment, which I don't, I think that what Staff Member Salmond is saying, I don't think is in contradiction to the amendment. In fact, probably follows on logically. I'd just like to say I personally, even though I've expressed deep reservations about this whole concept, I actually feel much more comfortable with it if we are the responsible organisation during the interim phase. We do have quite significant differences with the other two councils, historic sort of cultural differences. The Grey District Council Mayor celebrated the defeat of the Three Waters legislation, whereas in fact we could see, I think most people in Bulla could see that the loss of that was to our distinct disadvantage. Also, I think it's worth noting that the other two councils do not belong to LGNZ, Local Government New Zealand, whereas we do. We have a more outward-looking, collaborative approach to working with other councils around New Zealand. Grey and Westland have chosen to go down a rather more introverted, insular pathway. I would much rather that we were the lead council in this process that we don't really like, but we're stuck in. I'd much rather that we were the lead council than one of those other two.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor?
Can we make an amendment to the motion that we agree to fund 1/3 of the debt here and now, and that is what we agree to do, is fund 1/3, and then that Bulla District Council, as identified in the heads of agreement, are responsible for the administrative matters, which will include the raising of 1/3 of debt funding.
We could. Can I ask a question on that? Given that we're a member and we can raise our 1/3 debt, but Greymouth and Westland aren't, then the money that Grey and Westland borrow will incur debt at a greater rate, which will come back to no.
So just to be clear, so they're not members of LGNZ.
Yeah.
The local government funding agency were all members of the council. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So too many acronyms. Sorry.
Yeah.
So look, just as the mover of the amendment, I would be happy to incorporate that proposed wording around the three-way split in terms of debt raising.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
If that's going to get us across.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, I think you seconded. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any Councillor Reid?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seems lights still on. Once again, Bulla District Council is the council identified in the head as responsible for administrative matters. Just said before that we do not have the staffing capability at the moment to undertake this work, and yet here we are saying, let us do it. But yet I'm hearing all the time that staff are working in overtime and stuff, extra times and stuff like that. I don't believe we should be doing it. I hear what Deputy Mayor said before about us being responsible for procurement and the like. I'm saying that moves, whoever's holding the debt, it moves down to them, so they're managing the procurement, administrative processes and the debt.
Thank you, Councillor. Simon, would you like to comment on that?
So we do have capacity and we are comfortable doing that work. We are, yeah, so it's something that the team have talked about. We are able to deliver this, and we are confident around our ability to be the administrative council for the Water CCO. This isn't falling solely on finance. This is across the board. So this is primarily procurement. So we have the capacity. In fact, we're the only council with a procurement manager and a robust procurement policy and a robust set of procedures falling out of the post PMO work. So that's why we put forward, and the councils are comfortable that we are the admin council.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Teresa to comment on that as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to, I mean, I can't confirm in terms of staff capacity, but what I can say, the burden on councils shouldn't be too high, and we're actually looking at bringing on a program coordinator that will be able to help as well, because the amount of work, the amount of contracts is going to be going up. So we don't want to overburden Buller District Council, but we have the systems and everything already set up. We have the contracts and everything already set up through Buller District Council, and as Simon said, the process we've got so far works really well. As it happens across the various councils, most of the admin stuff is done by Buller, but the other two councils are doing some other activities in an increasing amount as well. So the spread's actually really good across all three councils. So yeah, it's working. It would be a shame if we had to break it now.
Would it cause any problems, Teresa, if it was to be changed?
It's just money, like it's just an administration overhead to change everything, to put everything into different systems, to get a renegotiation of how we're going to borrow the money. I mean, it was not going to be difficult. We'd be able to find another way, but we're using your systems, we're using your processes, we've got our procurement going through you, and you know, all our financial reporting's going through you. We've got it all set up. All of that cost, it's a sunk cost that's already happened. So, you know, the ongoing burden to your staff is not high to do this, because they've helped us. They're, you know, make sure that the processes are effective. You know, you've got really good, hardworking staff that have got really good processes, and we're making sure we use them.
Thank you, Teresa. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I've already had a discussion about this, but very concerned about the statement from the Chief Executive and that about procurement. Yeah, I understand about procurement, but the first thing we're looking at is appointing, I should say, directors. They will then become responsible for my understanding, for then appointing the chief executive and so on and so forth. So I'm a bit lost as to what procurement. Procurement for me is not the same as employment. So what other procurement will be required by this organisation?
Simon.
So I'm not sure I understand the relevance of the appointment council. What's that going to do with admin council? I'm just
well, I can say that the only procurement that will be undertaken is employment. We're looking at what other procurement will there be in terms of digging up roads and what have you. The procurement goes through, the appointment process goes through until 1 July 2027. And that specifically relates, when you look at the budget, to administrative costs and developing or forming the board and the SLT.
Okay, we'll hand that over to Simon too.
It may be easier for the council's clarity for maybe Teresa, if you can explain about what's actually involved.
So one thing, Thomas, I'm in a meeting. Be quiet. Sorry, child's just come home from school. In terms of procurement, so the question was asking about, so I mentioned procurement. So the procurement that we're looking at, yeah, first of all, it was around the recruitment company to hire the board. The second one has been about our different work streams. So we've looked at the approach for our asset management work stream, for program coordination support. We're looking at our digital systems in terms of current state and future state. And we will be looking at treasury management, and yeah, there's a few others, but this is procurement to support the team in order to be able to complete the transition. We can't do it with internal staff only. We don't have either capacity or sometimes the right capability in order to do the transition. Your staff are there for normal BAU work. You don't employ them so that they can do a transition into a new water company.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, I'm going to suggest, not suggest, adjourn for 10 minutes. We've been going for a while. Sorry.
Vote on this one first.
Okay, vote on it first. Okay, any further discussion? Rosalie and then Paul.
Just, well, it's a, request is, can we have a copy of the heads of agreement, or where do we find the heads of agreement we keep referring to? And I thought it should have been an attachment to, it would have been quite handy, an attachment to this particular item.
I think it might already have been, put on our system. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
already on. It's on.
Any further discussion? Councillor Reynolds?
I'll be speaking against it too, but from a different angle than Councillor Reedy, in that I am sure that history will show that this crop is not in the best interest of ratepayers, and I wouldn't like my council to be associated with organising it. So it's my opinion.
Thank you, councillor. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Just one final comment, because actually I'm tired of hearing it. The blame for the previous council for voting it in, when in actual fact, we see very clearly that there is legislative requirement around this. Actually blaming councillors who vote for this for future reference back to it. You walk out of this room, whoever votes for it, votes for it. If it's passed, it's passed. And that should be the culture of this place. That actually if you lose a motion, you lose the motion, but we walk out of here knowing that this is what this is about. It's a vote around the table. So I'm kind of tired of pointing fingers. And actually there was an email we got before we came here from someone in the public saying, do not let staff talk you into this. Well, I want to make it very clear to any public who are watching that it is not our staff who are talking us into this. Our staff have been tasked with the job, which they've done very well around getting us this far. It is actually a government requirement of which we, if we pull out, DIA made it very clear that we will not get an in-house business unit. We do not have the right size. So I would like the culture here to change. You know, we're not here to accuse anyone else of making a bad decision. We're here to make a decision on what's around the table now. You either vote for it or you vote against it.
Thank you, Deputy, and I concur with that, and also whether you know, whatever the motion is, whether it's passed or not, you know, this is a collective responsibility at the end of the day. Councillor Hingston, did you want something to say?
Yeah.
Mike. Microphone, Dave.
Yep, thanks for that as well. For exactly the reasons that the Deputy Mayor just pointed out. And I would also note that you can get more work done when you're inside the tent controlling the administrative process. That's of interest of Buller than if we have control responsibility. It's actually better for Buller. I mean, if we gave it to Grey and they determine our destiny, well, you take the risks. But at least when we control it, we have more control of our destiny.
Thanks, Councillor O'Keefe.
So where are we at? Is this C? Are we going back to Ray's foreshadowed motion amended? Yeah.
And I think the wording, you probably need to hear the wording back from David because it includes statement about the three-way split.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got it down that Buller District Council identified in the heads of agreement as responsible for the administrative matters, which will include the raising of 1/3 debt funding.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, let's put it to the vote then. All of those in favour? Those against?
So is that you?
Okay. Where are we at? Okay.
Six motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. The motion is carried. and we'll adjourn for 10 minutes.
Point of order.
Oh, sorry.
So I don't
Councillor
want to be a
Kerno.
pedant here, but that was the amendment. You now have to vote on the substantive motion as amended.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll vote on that now. All those in favour?
It's the same thing.
The substantive.
I meant, yeah.
Yeah, but do you want to sort of explain it a little bit clearer for us?
The substantive motion was amended. All right, so we changed the wording of it. To word the original motion, now we need to vote on the original motion as amended.
Okay, thank you.
I know it's.
That's okay, that's okay.
That is the way.
That's great. So we'll put that to the vote as councillor Kerno. Okay, with the amendment. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Against? Thank you, councillor, for pointing that out. There we all learn. Okay, thank you, and we'll adjourn for just over 10 minutes and reconvene at 3:30. I'd like to thank all of those online for attending. Douglas and Teresa, thank you very much for your assistance. Much appreciated. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll call the meeting back to order. We're live now, Caitlin. Okay, welcome to those back online who may be watching. Welcome back, Linda Webb. Thank you. Okay, just before we move on with business, Councillor Reedy would like to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
When we were discussing before about the administrative work that we're undertaking or proposed to undertake for the CCO, I have been informed that instead of, I referred to having to a lot of the back work that we're having to do in finance, and apparently I used the word capability instead of capacity. So apparently I used the word capability on 2 occasions. So I apologise if I use the word capability, because it's not capability that I was referring to. It was the word capacity, that we do not have the capacity within finance or administratively to undertake the administrative role because of the issues that we have with audit and financial management systems and that. So once again, apologies.
Thank you, Councillor, for that clarification. Much appreciated. Also, just before we move on, just like everybody to note that Councillor Curnow will take a leave of absence at 5 p.m. Thank you. Now I'll hand over to Simon, because we've got a wee bit of a change going forward, given that we're running behind schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do have a risk workshop booked this afternoon, but due to the availability for Rossiter, who has to go at 6, we agreed we don't really have enough time to do that justice. What we're suggesting is that we shift that to another time and give it the time it really needs. So what we're proposing is that we continue on with the council meeting. Obviously, we've got 2 more papers and finish at that point. So just to let you know, we will rebook that risk meeting when we've got the due point.
Well,
Yeah, thanks for that. Simon, any sort of rough idea of when that could happen?
I don't, sorry, Councillor, we will do it. Sorry, Caitlin, have you got some?
Assuming it for Fell Street is available.
Okay, so it will be as soon as possible. I think, to be fair, we do need to, because I think we had 3 hours booked, but I would suggest we probably need 4. Because we did have that meeting booked prior to the last RAC meeting, but I think after the comments received at the last RAC meeting about the importance of really deep diving into this, and this is the new council, first time we've looked at that risk register. So we'll try and find 4 hours. So it will depend on Phil and his availability, but we'll come back to you as soon as we can, but sooner rather than later.
Deputy Mayor.
Just one more question, Simon. When in the RAC meeting, we did discuss with Rachel around maybe sending through some amendments that we thought needed to be made, just highlighting them. Should we still be doing that? Like, is that worthwhile doing them? And do we send them, would we send them to Rachel just like with the spreadsheet with some comments on it?
Yeah, I think that would be useful, and it will be, we will try to arrange that workshop to have Rachel actually in attendance, because I think she would add real value as well. Sorry? Yeah, I think her availability today was sort of was dependent on her previous meeting, for example. So we will, I think it'd be great to actually have her here in person if we can. Anyway, we'll work on that. And so if there are thoughts you've had around those existing risks or things you'd like to see, then I think Rachel would be the first point.
Thanks, Simon. Okay, so we'll move back to the agenda. Now, the next agenda item is agenda item 3.2, annual plan 2026 to 2027 roading depreciation, prepared by John Salmon. John, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to, I'll take this report as read. I think the reason why we've brought the next 2 papers to council is to give the elected members some decisions to make before we finalise our annual plan for the draft annual plan for adoption on the 1st of April this year. So I'm happy to take any questions. Obviously, these are significant topics that came up through the workshops. I think it's appropriate that we've got a paper for decision in front of you today.
Thank you, John. Councillor, okay, we'll go on to questions. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Rutherford.
Just a question around the risk of us beginning to depreciate for roading. So at the moment, we get 75% funded through NZTA. If we start to put aside money, are we flagging that we've got extra money to them? And do we run the risk of reducing our current subsidy from NZTA? That's one question. And then the other one is could this be pushed back to a decision for the long-term plan?
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would say that it wouldn't run the risk of reducing the subsidy. The subsidy is obviously reviewed every triennium, anyway, every 3 years, part of our LTP, Regional Land Transport Programme, through NZTA, and I would suggest that it wouldn't be reducing it given that risk. In terms of the second question around can we delay it to the long-term plan, that's ultimately your decision to make today, and that's exactly why we put it on the table for the elected members to decide. So yes is the answer.
Why do you think it wouldn't risk us getting a less of a subsidy? Because if we're flagging that we're putting money aside, what makes you think it's not a risk?
Because we're only putting it aside for the piece that they are not going to fund. So regardless of how much that subsidy is, we would be looking to fund that other part. But it has no bearing on what they actually fund us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So look, I confess to being a bit confused. The paper indicates that if a decision is taken not to fund depreciation into a reserve, it will reduce the overall rate movement by that figure, which is approximately a 4% saving on total rates. Can I interpret that if the decision here today is made not to go ahead, that it will reduce from 9% down to 5%?
Through your worship, yeah, that is the case, Councillor Rutherford, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sampson.
Yes, I was going to ask about the same thing because I thought that comment in paragraph 6 was a bit ambiguous in the fact that 1.3 for depreciation, and if the decision is taken not to fund it. Yeah, but so then it comes to number 14. There are key financial consideration terms to be made in this report. So what are those key financial considerations? Just what has been said, the 1.3 not funded for depreciation, but we will still be funding for our 25%. Because that's where I thought it was ambiguous, the fact that if we funded the 1.3 for depreciation, we still have to pay fund our 25% as well as.
For the first year, as we have no reserves, we would have to fund that 25%. But it's what your reserve is doing, it is putting that money there available to renew your assets and not have a financial impact in future years. So you're building up a reserve so that you don't need to rate for it. It won't impact your rate payers. You don't have to draw down loans. You don't have interest costs. And it spreads it intergenerationally as well.
But in the first initial year, you're paying both. If you
in the first year, because we have no reserves, so we'd have to.
But that's how we've always done it. Yeah. And I take on board what Shane was saying when we were funding sealing strips in areas of greater need, we did end up getting pinged for it. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, are there any further questions? Councillor Hawes.
Yes, I just want to understand that a few moving parts. One is that if we say that this should go to a long-term plan process next year, I'm right in understanding that there is no immediate impact in terms.
If you decide not to fund it, it will reduce the current rate that we've got in the plan, the draft plan. It won't impact ratepayers other than to reduce the rates. It won't have an impact now. It will have an impact in the future.
Yeah, so effectively, why are we doing this now and not allowing it to be a consultative process? I mean, this seems to be a preemptive process. So I understand that you've identified that that there might be it is recommended that it's done as a funding to build up a pool to do depreciation, but it isn't a must as the way it's written. So therefore, why would we not then give this back to our ratepayers as a consultative process?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I think it's a really good question you asked, Councillor Hawes. I think there's two parts to that. Ultimately, we will be going to consultation for the annual plan on the 7th of April anyway, potentially if it gets adopted. But also I think that there's clearly a ratepayer impact, and I can understand the question behind it. And that's ultimately why the question is on the table today, is for the elected members to make a decision, and then it can go to consultation. And if the feedback from the public around it is against the decision that you've taken, then of course we can look at changing that at the time.
Councillor Hankster.
Yeah, my question is, this is funding for a capital asset, i.e. the roads, pretty much, depreciation, sorry, for the roads. Do we fund depreciation for our other capital assets like infrastructure and everything else? So we're already paying money to make sure we don't get a bow wave or a lump sum payment somewhere in the future. That's what depreciation alleviates. So now I could think what Councillor Dave said, is now the right time to be doing this? Or can we, with all the other pressures on rates and unknowns like the water CCO and the regional governance, can we maybe defer this decision? It's not kicking the can down the road, but it is saying, you know what, we've got a lot of pressures on rates at the moment. It's fast getting to the point of unaffordable. And what would be the adverse impacts if we delayed this decision, took a pause, took some consultation into account?
Through Chair, there's two parts to that question, Councillor Hanks. I'll take the first part and I'll pass the second part on to Leslie. In terms of how we depreciate for assets currently, this is a blood taken from the long-term plan. We do fund depreciation for all activities except roading, as we're discussing today, stormwater and property. So in terms of stormwater and property, we don't currently fund the depreciation of those assets. In terms of question 2, I'll pass over to Leslie.
Yeah, I think for me, you've got to think of it this way. Do you fund the depreciation or do you increase debt? Now, there's always conversations around the table about the rates and about debt. So the decision is yours, which you prefer, but one or the other will have to happen.
Thanks, Leslie. Councillor Sampson.
So if we turn around and rate for the 1.3 million for depreciation, how will that be dealt with? Will it be put in an investment labelled roading, or will it be put into the roading account that can just fritter away that we don't see it?
It will be ring fenced in a specific reserve if you were to fund it, and then it can be used for capital in the future.
But we don't see that with our infrastructure. We don't have, with our water, we do see a depreciation factor in the country. Water accounts do, but I haven't noticed it within our bigger infrastructure.
That's because we haven't got a reserve.
Where we have sort of depreciated for infrastructure.
So there's two parts to depreciation. One is your depreciation charge, so where you're splitting the cost of the asset over the life of the asset. That is, you've got to, that's not cash back, that's just a charge. So that's so that we can have our balance sheet sitting at the value of the assets, the carrying value. So you've got to look at it from that perspective. And the funding portion, the funding of the depreciation is different to the charge. So regardless, you will see a depreciation figure in your statements, which includes all the depreciation. But not all of that is funded because we're not funding stormwater and we're not funding roading. So even though there's a charge there, it's not all funded. And that's how accounting standards work. You have to show your depreciation, but whether you fund for it, that's a council decision.
Thanks, Leslie. We've got councillor Webb, councillor Hawes, and then councillor Reynolds.
Thanks. I just wanted it to be clear, like, what is the difference between loans and depreciation in terms of intergenerational equity?
I'm sorry, councillor, can you repeat the question? I didn't.
What's the difference between loans and depreciation in terms of the intergenerational equity? So like looking at, when you're weighing it up.
Yeah, so if you gather a reserve, you may have cash that you can actually put into investment, so you're earning some money on it until you use it. Whereas if you don't and you have to draw down on a loan, obviously the service costs immediately of drawing down on that loan. So it effectively costs more.
Thank you. Councillor Hawes.
Well, I find it a bit confusing. So just for clarity around that, you're saying that if we don't fund roading by depreciation, funding for depreciation, then we fund it by debt. So are you telling me that in the past that we have been increasing debt to do roading? Because I believe that in our annual plans that we are given the ongoing cost of the roading, our portion of what it is, and then that is factored into the rates for the current year rather than accruing debt. So that's part of the plan. I always imagined that there are 25% as it is now of the fund we rated for in the year in which we're going to do the work. And now I'm hearing that that if we don't do this funding, then we're going to be borrowing to do it. How does that work, Leslie?
We don't rate for the capital works. We would have to loan fund. What probably you're thinking of, it's probably not been explained very well, and it's just we have a portion of 25%, and we haven't been rating for that 25%. So it's had to come from somewhere. So the only place it can come from is debt. So it's just probably not been very well explained.
Can I ask why we haven't been, Leslie, in the past?
Why we haven't been depreciating?
Rating for it.
Rating for the depreciation. Probably just like any other council that defers depreciation, they just trying to keep the rates down. It's a tool to actually keep the rates down.
So that's why it's ended up in our financial strategy in that way. It's just artificially keeping rates low. And so I guess what the team are signalling is that we're just surfacing this with you to make you really conscious of the fact that this isn't the best way to do it. But of course, that's council's call, how it wants to treat depreciation. But we're just conscious this is how it's been done in the past. You've got the opportunity to change it now or not.
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds.
Depreciation, of course, is based on value, and a roading asset, how do we value it? In fact, do we call it an asset at all, or just a liability because we don't maintain it? Its value will go to zero. So the figures you've got for depreciation depends on valuation. Where does that valuation come from? Is it an engineering basis or a book figure?
So the valuations are done through cost in the first year. So the cost is the first year that you would value an asset at, including roading. And every 3 years, or it has been for a couple of years, you have a revaluation carried out. And the value will come from there. And that has you have a depreciated replacement cost.
So the second question for Mr. Mayor is then who sets the level of depreciation, whether it be 1% or 50%? How's that set?
of the depreciation rates based on the life of the asset. So through the revaluers or the asset management plans, they will say that piece of roading is going to last for so long. And that would be your life of the asset, and you would depreciate over that life.
Thank you. Councillor Sampson.
Thank you.
What is the rate for roading through the chair, please? Of depreciation? Well, what rate of depreciation? So what is the life of the road and what is the rate of depreciation?
That will depend on different factors. I would have to pass that over to Asset.
I suppose that from a high level, it depends on the type of road. An asphalt road lasts longer than a chip seal road, and it lasts significantly longer than a gravel road. A concrete footpath lasts longer than a gravel footpath.
I understand all of that.
So from the answer before, everything is depreciated based on the life of the asset. So a bridge that's got a 100-year life is depreciated over the 100 years. A guardrail that's expected to last for say 10 or 20 years.
Okay, all of that accepted. So you have done the figures to work out the calculation on the different roads, etc.
That's an outcome of all of the asset management work that our team does, yes.
And added to that, the 25%, my understanding for roading is that we have rated for it. So you're saying now that we actually borrow because we have rated for our 25%.
We haven't rated for it, so we've had to borrow.
So you're telling me we're borrowing for groceries, for maintenance?
Yeah, that's what you
Well,
said.
I've been told in the past we have not.
Councillor Reedy.
No, I don't accept the fact. I know this should be part of discussion. I do not accept the fact that we are borrowing for roading R&M. Okay, there's a big difference between OPEX and CAPEX, and there seems to be a bit of confusion here. So we must be rating for roading R&M, i.e. the potholes. Okay.
So that's really the question then, isn't it?
Right,
are we rating for what you've just said?
Correct, Mr. Mayor.
We're talking about capital expenditure because you don't depreciate OPEX.
So just to Rosalie's
Operating
point, we will be rating an OPEX but not CAPEX.
So the comment before was a bit misleading, I'm afraid, Mr. Mayor, so that's okay. We are rating for CAPEX. And at the moment, the depreciation rates, I don't have them on me at the moment, they're in the annual plan, their depreciation rates. So we call something around the 10% mark, it's the highest level. It seems a bit light for me that a road may only last for 10 years, 10 tens or 100, but I can be corrected on that. There's some differing levels on there. Someone can perhaps go into the, but as far as the rating, the depreciation rates are concerned, I understand they've been thoroughly tested. I know I'm not asking a question, Mr. Mayor, but just to move on, so that maybe they need to be reviewed. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit mistaken with the 10%, but
Well,
that's okay.
That's maybe that's something that we can take offline. You can have that discussion with Leslie. Councillor Hingston.
I understood that we were rating for OPEX, we're not rating for CAPEX. You mentioned that we were rating for CAPEX.
Yep.
Okay. What understanding is the rating, the 25% that we have to fund ourselves, we borrow. So therefore, what we're doing is we're rating for the interest cost on that borrowing, 25%, and also the principal repayment. That is what we should be rating for, and that's my understanding of what we are rating for. The question now is, do we do away with that type of rating and then just rate for depreciation of roading, i.e. our 25% share, not the 100% share, which is what I understand we're looking at. So I know in our books, Mr. Mayor, that we have full depreciation, even though we don't pay what we carry for the asset is not just our 25% share, it is 100% share. That is the cost of the roading. And that's what we hold in our books. And 75% of that is funded by central government. Now, when it comes to depreciation in our accounts, we have to depreciate the full amount over whatever period. But what we're looking at now, my understanding, having to be corrected, is that we're only going to be rating for the 25% share of the depreciation applicable to the 25% that we have to pay. Happy to be corrected.
That's correct.
Very good. Let's go clarity. Is there any, Simon, did you want to add anything?
That's what I'm mad about.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Reynolds?
I'm just wondering why it didn't say there agrees to commence funding roading maintenance. So what's the difference between maintenance and depreciation? Where's the depreciation funded money end up? Where's it spent?
Just pass down.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question? I sort of lost a little bit there.
Well, I could understand this if the wording was agrees to commence funding roading maintenance from general rates. I can understand, the money's needed for maintenance, but this is for depreciation. Do you mean the same thing? And if it's funding depreciation, is the money spent on maintenance? If not, where does it go?
So the resolution talks about funding depreciation has been discussed just prior. Maintenance is typically OPEX, so that's repairing things that are damaged, like potholes and such like. So those are the normal OPEX, which is not depreciated. So we fund the OPEX, which is usually the maintenance, through rates. We're having a conversation about how we fund the depreciation for CapEx.
And the remains the question, Mr. Chair, so this money that is funded from rating, the depreciation, where does it go?
It goes, as Leslie said before, into a ring-fenced
It would go into a reserve with a set of a council created reserve for depreciation for roading. It would be ring fenced to roading.
When do we pick it up and use it for roading?
So we'll use it on renewals in future years. There would be 1.3 million from this year. Depending on what projects were in the plan, we will flip towards that.
Okay.
Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong, but so what we're looking at is a 9.5 rates this year. That's on the back of what was 15.5% initially. So this funding of 1.3 million, it wasn't already in the plan, so that's been incorporated into the plan, and still we're looking to come back to about the number that was forecast in the plan going forward, which was what we asked you to do. Does that sound correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Keefe.
Hi, just a question to staff. Say, for example, if we did vote on option 1, which is status quo, could we still put that in the draft plan for consultation, the choice? Because it's still something that, the community needs to look at.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, we could do that. We'd obviously, we've got a tight turnaround, as you can imagine, but if that is the request of council, then we'll make it happen, yes.
Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, just clarification from what you just asked, Leslie, Mr. Mayor. My initial question to John was, if if we choose not to proceed with this for the current AP, the rate increase will be more in the region of 5%. And John indicated that's correct.
Yeah, through the chair, if I just, yeah, you're absolutely right, Councillor Rutherford, it would be 5%, but also the mayor is correct in the question that he asked as well. What we're saying is that it's 9.05 with the funding of the depreciation. So essentially, as staff, we've found savings elsewhere to make up that $1.3 million. But yes, if that $1.3 million gets taken out, we'll save about 4%, give or take.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, are there any other questions? Councillor O'Keefe.
I'd like to move option 1 status quo, but then you put an extra bit on, no. Yes.
Yeah, so I can read it out for the people online too. The draft recommendation is that council agrees to commence funding roading depreciation from general rates from the 1st July 2026, noting that this represents a change to the long-term plan 2025-2034 financial strategy, and that the change is intended to improve funding for asset renewals.
No, not moving it.
So, do I have a mover? Okay, it's moved by Councillor Curnow. Do I have a seconder? I will second it. Okay, Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I agree in principle with this concept, I don't necessarily agree with some of the advantages and disadvantages. We have been travelling along quite well over the last number of years based on rate funding of borrowing, interest and principal repayments. Okay. Now we have to remember at the moment, Mr. Mayor, that we have about $40 million worth of borrowings. 32 million of that, we were told just previously, relates to water. Now then, we have a reserve account for water and wastewater. It's in our accounts. Okay. It is specific, just like Leslie said before, with the depreciation, it will go into a reserve account and will only be spent on, in this instance, roading. But I just mentioned before about the reserve accounts for wastewater and drinking water. Okay. Now, wastewater is depreciated. I'm not sure about drinking water. No, stormwater. So drinking water and wastewater is depreciated. Stormwater is not depreciated. So why have we got $32 million worth of debt if we have been depreciating these assets over a long number of years? And what I'm going to say to you, Mr. Mayor, is that the financial management of this organisation from 1 July 2021 has been extremely disappointing. Okay, we have gone down we've gone up from a net debt of about 15 to 19 million up to about 40 odd million, and we're looking at the end of this annual plan of about 48 or 49 million. So we're, as I said before, repeating myself, sorry, Mr. Mayor, we are depreciating for two significant assets, of which there's only about $7 million of which the roading is about 7 million, which is basically our 25% share. So why do we have $31 million of debt relating to water and wastewater, potable water and wastewater, when we have supposedly been depreciating for it? Okay. Now, all I'm saying at the moment, and this is no disrespect to staff, we do not have the capacity at the moment in the rating ability or for the community to pay this amount when at the moment we're paying, and it's already in the budget, remember, for this year, we're paying on a as and when required basis. And I'm fully accept that at the moment because I'm concerned about historical. Moving forward, I know things have changed. I've heard that many times before, and I've also heard many times, oh, the people responsible back then are no longer here. That doesn't wash in there, I'm afraid. So what I'd like to see is that 4% off. We're going to go for 5%. It does ask the question, though, for me, Mr. Mayor, why you want a point of order? We're in discussion at the moment.
Yeah, she's putting her hand up.
Okay, okay. So I've just lost my train of thought there. In terms of the debt that we have, I would like to. We've been talking about, hey, we've brought the annual plan down to year 2 of the long-term plan, 9%. But we know that something has been taken out of that long-term plan, and I haven't gone through the detail because now we've got provision for depreciation, which is 4%. So what's been taken out of the year 2 long-term plan to be able to accommodate the 4% for depreciation on roading? So there's a number of questions there, Mr. Mayor, and I'm very concerned.
Thank you. Is that something, Simon, or you guys can comment on in the workshop?
I've not got the numbers right in front of me at the moment. I mean, we can certainly get what the savings have been made, but I think we did allude to it quite heavily at the workshop, what we've managed to save on. I think contractor consultants costs are a big part of that. And yeah, there's no doubt we've went through the budgets extremely carefully, I would suggest. However, if you want an exact breakdown, we can bring one back to you.
Yeah, as we also said, we phased recruitment because obviously at this time of the year, there would be no way that any of those vacancies would all come on the 1st of July. So we phased them over the year. Plus we've gone back and worked very hard with the assets team, and we phased the budgets there as well, because we know they're not all going to be completed in the year. So we've put them where they should be, or where at this time the information says.
Thank you. Simon, do you have anything to add to that?
I think we talked about it quite extensively at the workshop, and we did talk about taking out some really key roles that we identified as key risks. So we can recirculate that. So workshop slides, I think those are pretty comprehensive, team. Yeah. So I think all the information's there, but I guess for each of those savings, we identified risks, and that's just acknowledging that. So yeah, we tried to be as comprehensive as we could. So it was a line by line review, and we got to the 15.6 of that original workshop, and then at council's guidance, we brought it back to the just over the 9. But again, we put this forward to you today around the roading depreciation because we thought it was something that it should be at least discussed. But we'll take your direction.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'll be voting against the recommended resolution for a raft of reasons, not least being we know the huge pressure that's going to be coming on our community in terms of costs through external factors. You know, if this will reduce the rate to somewhere in the order of 5%, I would welcome that, and I'm sure our community would. Again, a bit like Councillor Reedy, sort of the principle is probably, you know, reasonably sound, but clearly we've been operating for you tell me how long without using this tool. I don't think it would hurt us for it to continue a bit longer under our existing model. The concept of putting it into an LTP consideration, I just want to quickly address that. I was on Zoom with LTZ talking to the minister yesterday morning, and there was some sort of noise coming from some sectors that maybe we should be looking at an exclusion from an LTP next year in favour of producing another annual plan on the basis that we don't know what we're looking for in 2 years' time with the local government reorganisation. And I would say that even this that we're considering today could be better left until we know exactly who we are and where we are in 2 years' time. And so, no, I don't believe there's any rush to do it, even though, you know, the concept and principle is sound. If we knew where we were long term, I would think, you know, I would be more in favour of it. But given that we've got no idea where we're going to end up at this point in time, I think it won't hurt us to postpone. And in that conjunction, I really feel strongly that we should be advocating through LTNZ that we would ask government to consider not requiring an LTP next year, given that they have signalled a reorganisation of local government. I believe that we should strongly use that organisation to go to the minister along the lines, and we have two annual plans. So I'll be voting against.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Reynolds.
Actually, councillor Rutherford's probably said everything I want to say, except for the fact that at this time as well, with what's happening internationally, the costs for roading could be exponential in the next couple of years in particular. And so that's something that we probably do. It's probably a good reason to depreciate, but I actually think the cost to our people around fuel, interest rates, everything is going to be so high that we need to push it back. And I totally agree that we should be lobbying to push the long-term plan back as well. So just in agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, I think both Deputy Mayor and others have spoken about the need to tie-ho. I think that we're going to be looking, by the time this annual plan comes to fruition, we're going to be looking at other things that are going to have to be put back in. I really do think that the cuts that were done to get us to a starting point may prove to have some movement that needs to happen there. And I think that we need to allow for our long-term plan to have that consultative aspect of it, where we ask people whether or not they want to see this happen. So I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Reynolds.
Yeah, just a question. When we rate for this depreciation, when the funds come in, does council take a management fee out of that?
Sorry, through the chair, what do you mean by a management fee? Sorry, Councillor Reynolds.
Well, I noticed when the loan was taken out for the separation of water and stormwater, 10% of the loan went into a management fee of council. Does that happen for the likes of road and depreciation?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I don't recollect a management fee. I think maybe the management fee was potentially to do with salaries, potentially.
So the whole fund raised would go into an account and the interest on it would be ring fenced as well?
Oh, through the chair, do you mean project management rather than a management? Do you mean management of that project?
Yes.
Well, in terms of this, there wouldn't be a project, so there wouldn't be a project management fee attached to it.
Okay, so the whole fund's going to a bank account that's ring fenced. Does that include the interest that it earns over time? Because we're looking at, say, a bridge, 100 years, putting money aside for a long time.
It depends how the reserve is run. You know, we could obviously do an investment, as Leslie alluded to, but there's certainly interest that would go into that account for time, yes.
So if we put it, what you should do, might be a bit different here for a minute. You have your reserve account, and provided they're in credit, then you will add an interest cost to it. So based on the interest that we receive, so we would allocate some of that to that account. So it would build up some interest as well.
Thank you, Councillor Curnow.
Well, thanks very much for the discussion. While I remain in agreement with the arguments behind this proposal and circumstances, I withdraw my moving of the motion.
Could you repeat that, please?
I'd like to, I was the mover of this motion. I'd like to withdraw my moving of the motion, swayed by the discussion around the table at this stage.
I concur.
Thank you.
Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, just, I've just been sitting here making a complete fool of myself. I was, of course, referring to LGNZ. Thank you, not LTNZ. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly,
No one else noticed, only you.
certainly, from my point of view, I understand what staff are recommending here, to be best practice. And my intention was to, go with that, but I've been swayed by convincing discussion around the table, that, we should just hold fire and see what comes over the next course of time. So, I will be voting against the motion. Withdrawn, sorry. Okay. Well, so we put it to the vote, do we? No.
Leave it tabled and carry on.
Okay. Yeah, we leave the table. Thanks for that.
Well, I move the motion then. Yeah. I can move the motion. And I'll be voting against it, but someone's got to move it so we can move on.
Okay, I'll second that.
Yeah.
Discussion.
That's all right. We got some tricky ones today. It's all learning. Okay, so you've moved, I've seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay,
Sorry, for clarification, is this the same motion or withdrawn?
withdraw. Give us some advice here, Caitlin.
I would advise that if you can either leave it tabled if that's what the table agrees, or you can vote on it if you'd like, but you already had a mover and a seconder for the motion that withdrew.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you get a mover and a seconder, then you can vote on it.
Okay, right. Why don't we just have a vote, okay? All those in favour?
But did you get a seconder?
I was a seconder, yep.
In favour of what? What's the motion on the table?
Yeah, draft recommendation on the table. Okay, so all those in favour? Against? Councillor Hampston, behave yourself.
Just on number one.
Yeah.
You put it on it as well.
Okay, there's a second one here too. Okay, so notes that we will review the financial strategy as part of the 2027-2037 long-term plan process. Councillor Reid. Move. Deputy Mayor seconds. Okay, are there any discussion? Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, as per my earlier signalling, I strongly believe that we should be advocating for postponement of the long-term plan. And so I'd like to see if any resolution along the lines that has moved here this afternoon includes a provision that we advocate for a postponement of the long-term plan process.
Sorry, I don't think that's part of this discussion, actually. I think this is part of a different, another meeting. So, and as at the moment we are going to have an LTP process, I'm happy for it to be reviewed then, and thank the staff for bringing it forward, because actually, as we're going through, we are trying to bring in best financial practices. So, and I think that that is the right time to consider it, whether it be 2027 or 2028. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Kerno.
Completely agree with Councillor. I also agree with Councillor Rutherford. I was part of that discussion yesterday morning as a spectator. The LGNZ discussion with the minister, but this would not. I mean, this needs to be a carefully considered decision, and one that's properly discussed at the right time. This is probably not that right.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Hingston.
Sorry, yeah, I think the points brought out by Phil are very valid. I would see us in the future putting a postponement option forward for the LTP, but now is not the time to make that decision. At the moment, we can consider the financial strategy as part of the LTP. It's just, I think the dates may vary.
I'd hope they would.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Reading.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next, we'll review the financial strategy as part of. We always review the financial strategy as part of the LTP. Whether we go ahead with the LTP or not, that's has been discussed as another subject. At the moment, we're looking at the financial strategy. We're going ahead with an LTP at the moment, and we will be looking at this, which therefore means this whole agenda item will come back to the should come back to the table as part of the LTP discussions, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, agreed. Any further discussion? Okay, so we'll put that to the vote, and I'll just read that out again. 2 notes that we will review the financial strategy as part of the 2027 to 2037 long-term plan process. All those in favour? Those against? Okay, let's pass unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to I think that's the last agenda item. Yep, thanks, Caitlin. So agenda item 3.3, annual plan 2026-2027 budgeting and reporting tool. This is being prepared by Mr. Salmon. John, would you like to make any comment?
No, I'm happy to take this report as read, and we'll take any questions. I think something we've spoke about at length previously, and I'm happy to take any questions today on it.
Okay, Councillor Curnow and then Councillor Reading.
Thanks. So question to John. It's a tool for budgeting and reporting. But I assume that as a budgeting tool, it's sort of a modelling tool. So it is something that we could, the long delayed rates review, 11 years and counting, that this will assist us in reviewing our rating mechanisms.
This is to put in a budget so that we can go through an expression of interest or a proper procurement process for a budgeting and reporting tool that would suit what we need here. There are a few options around. We've put in an indicative budget of what we think that would include, what that would cost, and whatever we would want to go for, we would be expecting rates modelling to be a part of that.
Thank you. Councillor Reading.
Mr. Mayor. Constable loan and repayments, $7,000. What does that relate to, please?
It's on page 24.
That relates to the implementation costs. So this is an indicative budget, so assuming that the implementation costs would be capital and that it would be loan funded.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of implementation in this instance being capital. It's a bit different to me, because what we're talking about here is the 96,000, and then we're saying we're going to have a loan of 7,000, but I can't see therefore where is the money for implementation. So for me, as a reader, I see that 7,000 being part of the annual licence fee. Can I have some clarification, please? I know it's only petty cash.
So any fee that we would assume that we would have to pay from whatever system we looked at, or that we got expressions of interest on, there would be an implementation cost, because we would need the company to support us, and that would be under PBE IPSAS 17. That would be counted as a capex cost. The annual licence fee is an OPEX cost.
Okay, Colin. Councillor Sampson.
So was this a proposal to do a complete new system or an overlay upgrade? Because I sort of hear when I think when I spoke to you, Leslie, that we've got the system, but on top of it, the Excel is sort of difficult. So is that something to go over our system at the moment, or a completely new system? And then added to that, what is our present system costing us as far as license fees, because this at 96, I haven't thought we were paying quite a lot more.
The current system is an ERP system. It's not a budgeting and reporting tool. This, what we're looking for is a system that will, as you say, an overlay that will sit there for our budgeting, reporting and rates modelling. We have an ERP system currently, and the model that we use for our budgets and our reporting is Excel model.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if I could add on, so with all what we've discussed today with local water done well, what system are they, Magic Q, both Westland and Grey?
I think for ERP systems, Westland uses Magic, and I believe Grey for an ERP system uses Authority.
Will it cause any issues when we're trying to work through administration?
That's certainly, I know the other councils are looking at different financial modelling systems to what they currently have as well. But they won't cause any issues, no, is a short answer.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Langston and then Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, sorry, I might be a little slow given 4:30 and we've been at it for a while now, but I didn't understand the answer to Colin's question on principal loan and repayment. To my mind, that looks very much like what the insurance companies do when you try and pay your annual premium on a monthly basis. They charge you a 20% sort of surcharge, so you take a loan out to pay your annual fee. So can you just explain where that comes from, right? And what the loan value that we're borrowing and what rate we're paying?
Yeah. So we would take out a loan from the LGFA for the 103 and 36, and that would be the principal repayments and the interest payments of that.
That's just a normal one, we think. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Reynolds and then Councillor Reading? Oh, sorry, hang on. Councillor O'Keefe, Councillor Reynolds, Councillor Reading. Sorry, Tony.
That's okay. Through the chair, I'd like to move draft recommendation 1. The council agrees that the project budget of 103,000 for a new budgeting and reporting tool to be included in the draft annual plan, to be presented for adoption at the extraordinary council meeting on April 1st, 2026.
I'll second that. We're into discussion. Councillor Reading.
Yeah. As everyone knows, I have been in contact with Magic, and I've also been in contact with the principal auditor here at EY for BDC. It's all been covered off now in an email, and I'm still to get my hands slapped apparently. However, as everyone knows, I do deep dives, and I've done nothing wrong. Now, as far as the proposed budget and reporting tool, Magic has a thing called Magic Performance, which we have implemented. And it's there for budgeting and reporting. So I'm asking the question, why do we now need to have an overlay at $96,000? At the moment, in answer to Councillor Sampson's question, we're paying about $200,000 a year to use Magic. Okay, that's the license fee. Now, it doesn't matter if you think 200,000, you could be paying 300,000 maybe for Oracle, or you might be paying 150,000, whatever. That is the price that we're paying. I'm on discussion at the moment. So that's the price that we pay. Now, what seems to be, has been lacking over the years since 2021, 1 January, is the importance of a financial accounting system. And it's been left basically to rot, in my opinion. So now what we've got is a potential overlay of for Magic. But having spoken with people at Magic, I didn't ask anything about that. They would have looked at the agenda item, because I asked them to look at the agenda item if they were interested. It's in the public domain. I asked the question, do you have a reporting tool? And they said, and budgeting, they said, yes, it's called Performance, which we have. As I said in my email, I'm aware that members of Magic came down from Napier to Westport and gave a demonstration of the full capability of Magic Performance. Okay, and a checklist was made as to what improvements need to be made, and that was signed off by the previous GM corporate. It is now stalled for whatever reasons. So, what is the bottom line in terms of Magic Performance? Basically, the bottom line is this, Mr. Mayor, is lack of understanding of the product. Now, I'm aware, because I've heard a member of SLT saying that the reporting that it's terrible. But hang on, this is a reporting tool. I asked the question, with your reporting, can you download into Excel? Yes, and that's what I'd expect. Remember, I was dealing with Decfin back in about 1992, which is totally different to what we've got now in terms of software, accounting software. So this is all available. Now, worst case scenario is when one downloads from a financial management system, you do your V lookups, you do your H lookups, whatever, in terms of your formula, and you just put it straight into your spreadsheet that you want to present to whoever. So, regardless of the fact that they advertise this product as an ERP, I'm sorry to say, it presents everything that is required. We don't require an overlay, and we don't require $96,000 a year. Now, I've also heard on the grapevine that there was an overlay placed on, how many minutes have I got, Mr. Mayor? There was an overlay placed, and I can't mention company names, but there was an overlay placed down in Westland, and overlaid Magic. Okay, I understand now that there has been, I've heard on the grapevine that there is double handling required, and it is maybe not, just maybe, I'm hearing, not fit for purpose. Now, I don't know if we need to speak to Westland about this or not. I didn't ring them, but the point I'm making though is that there is no requirement for this council or the community to incur $96,000 per year on a licence fee when we're paying $200,000 for Magic, and the same capability and functionality is available, provided we do the training. Now, I'm hearing, Mr. Mayor, that we don't have time because we backlog in that.
Thanks, Colin. I think.
Do we have time to train for this new system?
Okay,
that's my case.
Yep. Thank you for that. I'd like to ask Leslie if she'd like to respond to that.
Yeah, first of all, I don't think we should be looking at other councils for what we do. We've got to do what's best for us. Secondly, I have seen Performance. I'm not going to comment on it. I know it doesn't do rates modelling, but this budget is indicative, and it is not making a decision on any budgeting and reporting tool. It's a budget to go out and get expressions and get an understanding of what the different systems can do. So we will go out and say, this is what we want from your system. Now, if a company can do that, they're welcome to come to us and say, look, here's our system. We can do everything you want. And we will look at those. We will go through a proper procurement process. That hadn't happened with the magic performance thing that Councillor Reedy was discussing. That didn't go through a proper process. They got a statement of work. I've seen it. They got a statement of work and somebody signed it off. It did not go through the proper process. It doesn't say what it can do. It doesn't say if it can meet our objectives. It's a statement of work to say, we'll implement it for this cost. That tells us nothing. So we want to go, this report is for us to put a budget in to go out and tell companies what we want, what we're looking for, and for them to come and tell us what they can do.
Thanks, Leslie. Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, I'm now confused. So I heard from Councillor Reedy that Magic already incorporates this additional overlay, but now am I right in thinking, yes, it does, but it comes at additional costs for what we're currently paying? So the $200,000 a year does not include this module performance.
The ERP system for this particular ERP system that we use does contain an element called performance, which is a reporting tool. However, the cost is in implementing it. So there is still an so it's not set up, it's there, but it's not set up. So there is a cost to setting it up, but we know it doesn't do rates modelling.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, so for complete clarity, the cost to implement it, is that a one-off cost, or does the annual license fee go up accordingly because this module is now being utilised?
I don't know, because we haven't done that due diligence, because we haven't been through a procurement process.
Okay, who? Deputy Mayor, I think it was.
Given the frustrations of our financial team over the last, how many months I've been here, which has not been many, and there have been many frustrations, I think that that our staff have every right to go through this process. We have asked them, we've demanded actually for better financial reporting. You're saying it's sitting there, Colin. Obviously, the procurement process wasn't right, so it has not been implemented properly. We need our staff to go through this process, to go through the proper procurement process to ensure that we are getting exactly what we've been asked in them to give us. So I'll be supporting that.
Thank you. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for a right of reply, really. I've mentioned before, 1 January 2021, up until the 31st of December 2020, 2 accountants, qualified accountants and experienced. No, hang on, please.
Hang on, please leave the deputy finish. Okay.
Is it?
Okay, yeah, I've just been reminded, Colin, you didn't move it, you don't.
No, agree, but I said I appreciate the fact that I can have a reply there, because there's a total misunderstanding, Mr. Mayor, a total misunderstanding. And what I'm trying to say is that up until the 31st of December 2020, the Magic was working perfectly. Then we went through a period of not having qualified staff managing that process. We've since had staff tune.
Thanks, Colin.
No, we've had staff tune, Mr. Mayor.
Order.
And
order
to bring in a new, okay.
Colin, order now. Yep. Okay, thank you. You've had quite a say on this. I think Councillor Hingston. And then Councillor.
There's always dangers in tendering out for software, because there's lies, damn lies in software promises, and very seldom do they deliver. So I'm in favour of the staff going out with a full user requirement, And I would hope that that user requirement will deliver them a tool that negates the use for multiple platforms that do bits and pieces. I'd hope that the user requirement would come back with a software that does deliver our accounting needs. So I'll be voting in favour of this.
Thank you, councillor. Just if I could put my 2 cents worth in, I agree with councillor Hingston and Deputy Mayor. I'll be voting for this. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, we've sat around here, we've all been told about, you know, our gaps in being able to report. We all asked that be fixed. We're all aware of the fact, as councillor Curnow pointed out earlier on, that we're probably going to be revisiting a rates review. We heard from the DIA reps that came down that you know, that it's an unusual situation in a low decile community that we have a rating system that we do. And I think that that this will come back to us in the consultation process around the annual plan, this year's annual plan. So that is another chance for a second input. We're only agreeing to put it into the long-term plan. And this is one of those elements that I indicated that would alter the percentages that we were looking at, and why I voted against the appreciating road and funding going in. So we're really going to be facing these things and a number of others probably still yet to come. There will be another discussion around it. I think I'm more than happy to vote for it to go forward into the annual plan, and then we'll hear back from people.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, I think we've had quite a bit of discussion on that, so let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Sorry, Linda, I didn't spot you before. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so our next meeting is on Wednesday, the 25th of March. That's a full council meeting at 3:30. So there being no further business, this meeting is declared closed at 16:44 hours. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone online, for showing interest. Thank you, Alan. We'll look for a good ride.